Hey guys, how are we doing tonight? Hopefully we're doing good. Hopefully you guys are all doing great. Welcome on in. Welcome on in. Come in, sit down, have a seat. Say hello to whoever's above you, below you. You know the drill. You know the drill. I'm just getting my screens in order. So that way I can see the chat over here later. Because there's a lot to do when you're a creator, when you get on your live. So let me get to the chat. Let me see how everyone's doing. I was in here a little bit earlier talking to you guys, but then I swear right before the live, I'm so ADHD. My brain goes and I'll start reading or something. And then I look up and I'm like, oh my gosh, how is it 8:16 already? I was like, I was just reading something really fast. So welcome on in. It's good to see you guys. We got a full house. I like it. I like it. I love it. If you guys missed the live from last night, we went over Idaho 4, but we did, Nancy Grace came out with a new podcast over Bryan Kohberger and like the latest developments in the case. And it's a documentary, a little bit different than what we're used to. She wasn't barking at people, like she wasn't saying her one-liners and stuff. It was more of like a documentary. So hold on one second, guys. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. I took my rings off a minute ago and I didn't put them back on. And I was like, oh, I don't have my rings on. So if you guys wouldn't mind just taking a second to hit the like button, that does go a long way. And what I was saying a second ago, we did Nancy Grace last night. She did a documentary over Bryan Kohberger. It was really good. So if you guys want to check it out, you guys can. It was really good. It was. Let me see. I'm going to get a shirt that says that one day. So if you guys, actually, let me go ahead and throw the channel membership in here really quick for you guys. If anyone wants to become a member of our great channel here. I'm just going to grab this link. And paste there. Do you think we'll ever get bored of talking about this case? I think so, Karen. I think. I still have yet to watch the last court hearing. I heard what I needed to hear. So I'm still really angry and I don't want to watch it yet, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe it'll start to fizzle out. I did say that I thought that once school kind of started, maybe the chats wouldn't be as full, because people have kids and stuff. They have to like take care of them, when they're going back to school and stuff. So, but hopefully, we just move on to another case and then we put our effort into those cases as well. And we do bring a lot of different cases to the channel, which is good. We've always been a variety channel, for true crime. So we have plenty more cases that are going to trial soon, and that will keep us occupied until Bryan Kohberger goes to trial. And then unfortunately it'll happen. There'll be another case that's maybe not just as bad, but to some, but it'll be bad. And then people will cover that very, very, extensively. That's how it goes on YouTube. I started with Kylie Rodney. And a little update. If anyone follows the Leilani or Quentin Simon case, Leilani Simon, I guess, got her GED in prison the other day. So she's doing okay. I can't believe it. He'll never graduate and she's over there doing that. So anyway, if you guys don't mind just hitting the like button, hit the subscribe button. We did hit 10.9K subscribers today. We are under 100 before we get to 11,000 already. It's amazing. That's amazing. I thank you guys for being here and for, subscribing and liking the video. So on tonight's live, we're going to be discussing Bryan Kohberger again, but we're more, let me get my words out. So we usually cover Idaho 4 and Bryan Kohberger at the same time, but this is more, going over just Bryan Kohberger and his arrest than, on 12/30. So we were actually on a live when I found out that Bryan was arrested, and I should have pulled that live up. I'll have to snip it and do a short or something for you guys. I didn't have my camera on, which I wish I would have. I don't know why I didn't have my camera on, but you couldn't see my facial expression, but you could hear it. Could hear it in my, I was like shocked. So it was very, very, very crazy. So I'm glad you're here to catch a live stream too. Let me throw up one of these. I'm trying to see what I wanted to share with you guys first. Let's see. So this is going to be our third time going and looking back. Basically, we did this series. The first time we did this series on our channel, we only did like 2 episodes, and that was back in January. And then we covered it again in like the beginning of the summer. So channel's grown a lot since then. So we're going to go ahead and cover it. And we actually covered different things this time. We don't, when we go back, we don't cover the same thing. So on this series, this is the third or fourth part. We did in our prior parts, we did Bryan Kohberger going to the house, going from the house. And then the third part, or the first part actually, was, the night of November 12th and a little bit into November 13th. But we didn't really get into the actual crime itself. So tonight we're going to be discussing Bryan Kohberger's arrest. So it's going to be a little bit different. Thank you, Karen, for gifting a membership. And Spilled Beans got it. Look at that. I'm going to grab my drink real quick. And thank you guys all for being here. Okay, let's see. I swear I need a shirt that says, let's see. Let's see. I think I'm going to pull this up first. Yeah. Let me go ahead and throw this up to the top so you guys can see what I'm looking at. Because some of you guys, I think, I don't know if everybody came into this case, back in November, like in the middle of November when it happened, or if people are just now coming in, that since maybe like Bryan Kohberger's arrest, or maybe just from like a few months ago. So if you're new, let us know, and we can, answer any of your questions that you might have. So this, the city of Moscow put up this website when Bryan Kohberger, I'm sorry, not when Bryan was arrested, when the homicides happened on King Road. So that way there was like one area where everybody could go get their information from, and it was supposed to, decrease the speculation and the theories, but it really kind of ramped them up even more, I feel like. So before the Idaho, state of Idaho website, there was the city of Moscow website. And this has, if you just go to the King Road, you can go to the King Road tab, and it'll have like everything that you need to know up until the point of his arrest, pretty much. So I'm going to go through just a couple of these news releases. They're pretty short. Just going to go over the one for a press release. The first one will be for like a press conference that they were releasing. And the second document will be the rest of Bryan Kohberger. And welcome in, everybody. Yeah, contrary Marge. Yep, I remember that. They did. They said they didn't know. They said they thought there was no threat. And then they said they didn't know if it was targeted. And then they thought it was targeted. They didn't know if it was the house that was targeted or the people that lived in the house that was targeted. It was a lot. It was a lot. Okay, so I'm going to read through this one here. This one's pretty short. So this is the press release that we all saw. This came out December 30th, 2022. And it says Moscow police announce press conference. Let me go ahead and make it a little bit bigger so you guys can see it a little better. That might help. And if you need me to blow it up anymore, let me know. If you ever need me to blow up anything more, just let me know in the chat. And if you need to tell Brooklyn or Jan, Summer, or Isabel, whoever's in the chat modding, and just have them like yell it at me if I don't see your message. Summer's usually pretty good at that. They get my attention somehow. Heck, she's even actually sent like a super chat one night to calm everybody down. She's like, can everyone calm down? So I like that. But no, don't do that to her. Moscow police announced press conference. It says the Moscow Police Department will hold a press conference at 1 p.m. Friday, December 30th, in the city council chambers at 206 East 3rd Street, Moscow, city of Moscow. It was the Moscow City Hall. Police Chief James Fry will give an update of the ongoing investigation into the quadruple homicide that occurred at 1122 King Road on Sunday, November 13th. Officials from the Moscow Police Department, Idaho State Police, the City of Moscow, and University of Idaho will be present. The conference will be live streamed on YouTube, and it gives you the link. Doors open at noon for media setup. Please hold all media inquiries until after the news conference. Well, okay, sir. What was he saying? What was Steve saying? I didn't even see what he was saying. What was he saying? I don't even know. I do have my phone though, and it's on. I think I have the ringer on too. I'm trying to be more cautious, here, more alert. But it's kind of hard to see the chat. I don't know why I don't just do this. Damn, there I can see it. And then I can even pop it out a little bit. Okay. So then this was the next press release that came out. There was only two for 12 on 12:30. And so I'll read through this. Basically, what I'm going to do is read through this, and then we'll watch the press conference, and then we'll just go on through that. And then at the end, I have a podcast I'm going to share with you guys. And they actually added like 2 more episodes to this podcast. So I'm super excited about that. And but the one I'm going to show you tonight is specifically going over Bryan Kohberger's arrest. And they actually have another person that worked in the school with him on this podcast. It's really good. She gives a little bit of insight, so as much as she can. So it says, arrest made in Moscow homicide investigation. Moscow, Idaho. Investigators make arrest in the November 13th quadruple murders in Moscow, Idaho. Oh, yeah. Actually, I just looked at the screen. I can look at your question. Yeah, hold on one second, guys. Sorry. I don't know if I can see it. Oh, wait, hold on. I got to go back up a little bit more. I'm trying to find it, Shell. Oh, Shell, you're talking about that. Okay. So basically what they did, this is what I've heard. This is what I heard the first night that came out. So what's her name? Not Vargas. Okay. So the woman with the red hair that came out that was on the stand. Okay. So let me go back, 'cause this is going to confuse everybody. She was asking about the FBI agents going and questioning one of the expert witnesses that were on the stand. Well, basically, because old girl took the stand, and then when she left, she called like a colleague or a friend, and she told them that she didn't agree with some of the things that she was testifying to. And that friend busted her out. That friend went and told on her. She was a surprise witness that day. So it wasn't like the prosecution they weren't even ready to even cross-examine her as a witness, because they had no idea probably what she was even talking about, because they don't know DNA and all that. They have to get their own expert witnesses to help them. And she was just a surprise witness. So what happened was she told a boo-boo, she told a friend, and then the friend told on her. And I think that's why the FBI agents went to her house, because they wanted to be like, what'd you do, girl? And personally, I thought she was very unprofessional. That's just my own opinion. I mean, the facial expressions, just the mannerisms, I guess you can't help your mannerisms, but she was just kind of, are they going to impeach her? I don't know, Kelly. That's a good question. That's just what I heard. Like, as soon as that came out, that's what I heard. It was on like the news or something. I don't know exactly where I heard it, but it wasn't just like a random place. It was like, it was random, but it was like a news somewhere. So, but it's very, very shady. It's very, very, very weird. Yeah. The one that had like it was like her hair was like red, and then she had like the real like loud looking shirt on. I don't know, it was like printed. I don't know. I just when she first went on there, I something, I was like something about her. So, but anyway, I'll read over the rest. But I'm glad you asked that question, actually, Shell, because I've been meaning to talk about it, and I kept forgetting. It was like yesterday, I think, or the day before, maybe. Maybe it was just yesterday. But I heard it like either yesterday or the day before. So I'm glad someone brought it up, and I'm glad I caught your question. Mm-hmm. So it says, investigators make arrest in the November 13th quadruple murders in Moscow, Idaho. On November 13th, 2022, at 11:58 hours, Moscow Police Department officers responded to a call at 1122 King Road for the report of an unconscious individual. Upon arrival, officers discovered 4 deceased individuals, which were later ruled to be a homicide. Last night, in conjunction with the Pennsylvania State Police and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, 28-year-old Bryan Christopher Kohberger was arrested in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, on a fugitive form justice arrest warrant. He is wanted on 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of felony burglary for entering a residence with the intent to commit murder. Kohberger resides in Pullman, Washington, and is a graduate student at Washington State University. These murders have shaken our community, and I know that no arrest will restore the families or bring these young students back. However, we believe in the criminal process and continue to extend our most sincere condolences to the families, said Moscow Police Chief James Fry. Since November, investigators have been laser focused on pursuing every lead in our pursuit of justice. This complex case took extensive work to develop a clear picture of what occurred, and I'm thankful for the dedication shown by members of the Moscow Police Department, Idaho State Police detectives, and crime lab technicians and scientists, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation for the resources and personnel to conduct this massive investigation. It was persistent determination and extensive hours spent unraveling this case that led to an arrest. And then it's going to go through like what happened that evening. You're welcome. Welcome in, everybody. Welcome in, new people. I see some new names. I love that. On the evening of November 12th, Kaylee Gonzalez and Madison Mogan arrived home at about 1:56 a.m. after visiting a local bar and street food vendor. Ethan Chapin and Zana Kernodle were at the Sigma Chi house before arriving home at around 1:45 a.m. 2 roommates who survived the murders had also been seen in the community and returned home at about 1 a.m. On the morning of November 13th, a 911 call was made at 11:58 a.m. reporting an unconscious person at the residence. The call came from inside the home from one of the surviving roommates' cell phones. Moscow police responded and found 2 victims on the 2nd floor and 2 victims on the 3rd floor. Autopsies conducted by the Latah County coroner confirmed the identity of the 4 victims along with the cause and manner of death as homicide by stabbing. These tragic murders took 4 young, vibrant members of our community. This has been a difficult time for the families, the university, the Moscow community, and the people of Idaho. However, it has also proven the communities come together in tough times, said Colonial Kendrick Wills of the Idaho State Police. I've had the utmost confidence in the Moscow Police Department that this investigation would be done right. Chief Fry selected the right people for the right positions to successfully solve this case. Nothing deterred the commitment of investigators to work together as they build incredible partnerships to bring justice for the victims and their families. The Idaho Supreme Court dictates that probable cause affidavits remain sealed until the arrest warrant is returned to the court. As such, the factual basis of this case will remain sealed until an initial appearance is made in an Idaho court. No additional information can be provided in this case until court files and records are released. There will be no bond, and the suspect can waive or fight extradition to Idaho. However, once back in Idaho, the court process will continue. The FBI has committed its full support to our partners with the Moscow Police Department in an effort to solve this horrific case and bring some resolution for the victims' families, said Special Agent in Charge Dennis Rice of the Salt Lake City FBI. Though nothing can bring Madison, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan back, we remain dedicated to working with our state and local partners throughout this investigation. The investigation continues, and detectives have seized a white 2015 Hyundai Elantra. Additional search warrants and location searches are occurring in multiple locations. Additional evidence will be collected and interviews conducted. Throughout the investigation, the community took an intense interest in this case. Over 19,000 tips were received, with over 9,000 through email, 4,500 by phone, and over 6,000 digital media submissions. Investigators have conducted over 300 interviews. It's a lot. 19,000 tips for 6 weeks. A 6-week, and like, this was up until 6 weeks. Like, that is, I wonder what like an average case would get. I'm just really curious, you know? I'm really curious now. I'm gonna have to look into that. Also, let me know your guys' thoughts about this. I put it on the community tab. So the school, the University of Idaho said back a couple months ago that they would hold off on the demolition of the house until October. And I said, mark my words, it won't go to trial in October, and then they're going to take down the house. They're going to end up just tearing it down because they're going to say we're not going to leave it up for years upon years. So what do you guys think? Because I don't know. Maybe they will. But do you guys think that they're going to leave the house up, or do you think they're going to tear it down? Or do you think it's going to be like a battle, like a court battle? I'm really curious to know about the house now, because they said they were just going to keep it up till October, and I think that they're kind of ready to get rid of that house. Karen said take it down. Yeah, I think that's just me personally. I think they're going to probably say they want to take it down. Ooh, Rose. Joe Kenda, I love him. I really do. He's one of my favorites. He's one of my favorites. I think I've seen every episode that he's ever had. So the next thing I wanted to do was play the press conference for you guys really quick. It'll be the last one in our little series of press conferences that we watched. Let's see. Actually, what's this one? Okay, so this one is from 12/29. So I'll play this one first. It's only a minute long.
I'd like to give a quick update to the community. Starting Friday morning, we are going to be bringing in a professional cleaning crew to go to the residents and begin cleaning. Part of the reason we're doing that is because of the biohazards, as well as chemicals that were used during the investigation. So there will be activity over at that residence on King Road, and we just want people to know about that. I'd like to update everybody on the amount of tips that we've received. Number one, because we've received a lot more tips here recently, and we're continuing to investigate those and follow up on those. We've received over 19,650 tips. Email-wise, 9,025 of those have come in. Phone-wise, 4,575, and we've received over 6,050 digital tips. We want to thank the community for all their help, and thank everybody across the nation for the help that they've given us.
Okay, so that was just like a short little clip there. I wanted to show you guys that though, before we get into the actual press conference. So let me just go back here. Oh. And we already went through all of those little, these little clips last weekend. Whenever we were at the end of our live, we did our members. We'll probably do that again this week as well. We'll do like the last 20, 30 minutes members only. And we played these videos and we just kind of talked through them, and it was a good conversation. So here's the last one. I'm going to pause it before it gets too loud. Okay. So I'm going to play through the press conference here, and I just like to play through these because sometimes you pick up something that you didn't hear the first time, or maybe you've listened to them like 1 or 2 times, and I always feel like I pick up something, I hear something that I didn't hear the first time. So, and then this will be the last little press conference that we have to watch. And we did watch the one from Pennsylvania not too long ago, so I won't play that one again. But if you guys want to watch it, I can always. If you guys can't find it, I could always put a video of it out for you guys. Just let me know. Actually, I think this is. Yeah, I gotta fast forward it. Sorry, guys. I need to do that to your ears.
Thank you for coming today. Last night, in conjunction with the Pennsylvania State Police, Federal Bureau of Investigation, detectives arrested 28-year-old Bryan Christopher Kohberger in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, on a warrant for murders of Ethan, Zana, Madison, and Kaylee. I want to personally thank these agencies for their assistance in this case. Kohberger resides in Pullman, Washington, and is a graduate student at Washington State University. We will provide as much information as we can about the extradition to Idaho and the criminal process. However, due to Idaho state law, we are limited in what information we can release today until Kohberger has his initial appearance in Idaho court. I want to express my appreciation to our local community, the people of Idaho, and those throughout our nation who provided information to help us investigate these murders has been very impressive. We've received over 19,000 tips, and we've conducted over 300 interviews. To recap this case, on the evening of November 12th, Kaylee and Madison arrived home at about 1:56 a.m. after visiting a local bar and street food vendor. Ethan and Zana were at the Sigma Chi house before arriving home around 1:45 a.m. The two surviving roommates had also been in the community but returned around 1 a.m. On the morning of November 13th, a 911 call was made at 11:58 a.m. reporting an unconscious person at the residence. The call came from inside the home from one of the surviving roommates' cell phones. Moscow police responded and found 2 victims on the 2nd floor and 2 victims on the 3rd floor. On November 17th, autopsies were conducted and the Latah County coroner confirmed the identity of the 4 victims. The cause and manner of death was homicide by stabbing. Some had defensive wounds, and each had been stabbed multiple times. These murders have shaken our community, and no arrest will ever bring back these young students. However, we do believe justice will be found through the criminal process. This was a very complex and extensive case. We had developed a clear picture over time, and we stand assured that the work is not done. But be assured the work is not done. This has just started. Since November, we have remained laser focused on pursuing every lead in our pursuit of justice for the victims and their families. I recognize the frustration with the lack of information that's been released. However, providing any details in this criminal investigation might have tainted the upcoming criminal prosecution or alerted the suspect of our progress. We will continue to provide as much information as we can as the process moves forward. Today, I want to specifically thank our dedicated Moscow Police Department detectives, patrol officers, the Idaho State detectives, the Idaho State troopers, and their crime lab technicians and scientists, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation for the resources and personnel to conduct this massive investigation. It was the dedication of them and the persistence and the numerous hours that led to an arrest. Fortunately,
These highly skilled people work together as a cohesive team to solve this case. I also want to thank our community and the nation. Over the past 6 weeks, I've been continually reminded of how much our community cares. Locally, public support has been exceptional with kind words, food for investigators, and letters of support. You will never know how much your words of encouragement help us through these trying times. I appreciate each of you and each of your kindness. Agencies and individuals from across the nation have reached out to us to express their support to this department. I'm reminded how our Moscow community, our families, and the nation has been impacted by this daily. Finally, I do want to thank our media partners for the help. You kept this in the news. You helped us with tips. You kept things going, and we truly appreciate that. And you are the product of those 19,000 tips that we received, which is an impressive number. I would like to invite Bill Thompson, the county prosecutor, up at this time.
Good afternoon, folks. My name is Bill Thompson. I'm the Latah County prosecutor. And it's sad to be here, but happy to be here at the same time. As Chief Fry indicated, a criminal complaint was filed yesterday here in Latah County, charging the defendant, Mr. Kohberger, with 4 counts of first-degree murder, in addition to felony burglary, which involves entering the residence with the intent to commit the crime of murder. Mr. Kohberger, and let me preface, there's a pending case now in court, and I and my office and the investigators have to live with the restrictions that our Supreme Court places on pretrial publicity. That said, I promise you we will share with you through the court process or otherwise whatever we are allowed to. I just appreciate your patience on that. The factual basis for the charges are summarized in what's called a probable cause affidavit that is on file with the court. According to the rules of the Idaho Supreme Court, that is sealed until Mr. Kohberger is physically back in Latah County and has been served with the Idaho arrest warrant. At that time, we expect that that affidavit will be available to you so you can share the true facts with all of your readers and your watchers and your listeners and all the people who are interested and really need to know what's going on. So please have patience with us on that. We hope to get that to you as soon as we can. As far as Mr. Kohberger, I can share with you that he is a graduate student at Washington State University and has an apartment residence over in Pullman. He has had an initial appearance in front of a judge in Pennsylvania. He is being held without bond, and the warrant from our magistrate judge here also provides for no bond. We understand that he's scheduled to be back in court in Pennsylvania next Tuesday afternoon, and that a public defender has been appointed for him there. The process at this point is, since he was arrested in another state, he has the opportunity to either waive extradition and return voluntarily to the state of Idaho, or if he prefers not to waive extradition, then we will initiate extradition proceedings through our governor's office. If we do that, it can take a while for him to get here. So again, I'm asking for your patience and understand that's just the way the system works. Once he gets here, he'll have an initial appearance with our magistrate. They'll deal with issues such as making sure competent counsel is representing him, and the case will be scheduled for further hearings. Your primary source of factual information is going to be the court record, because that's what the Supreme Court says we need to refer you to. So please pay attention to what's going on in court and have people there to watch and hear what's being said. As an attorney, myself and my office, we are limited on what we are allowed by the courts to say outside of the courtroom. So please just work with us. Finally, as the chief indicated, this is not the end of this investigation. In fact, this is a new beginning. Y'all now know the name of the person who has been charged with these offenses. Please get that information out there. Please ask the public, anyone who knows about this individual, to come forward, call the tip line, Report anything you know about him to help the investigators and eventually our office and the court system understand fully everything there is to know about not only the individual, but what happened and why. Next, I'll introduce Colonel Ked Wells from the Idaho State Police. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Kedrick Wills. I serve as the director of the Idaho State Police and certainly want to express our appreciation for your attendance here today. These tragic murders took 4 young, vibrant lives from our community. Nothing we do can bring them back. The only thing that we can do in law enforcement to honor their memories that we know of is to bring this to a successful conclusion. This has been a very difficult time for the families, the university, the community, and the state of Idaho. However, it is also proven that communities come together in tough times. Certainly appreciate the support of the local community and our national audience that has been following us as our investigators have worked through this case. I'm thankful also to you, the media partners, who have helped keep this case in the forefront that generates the tips and we hope will continue to generate information that will help us to a conclusion of this proceeding. I'd like to express our appreciation on behalf of the Idaho State Police to Chief Fry, his leadership, and the entire Moscow Police Department for the way that they handled this from the very beginning. He directed the right people to the right positions that led us to this conclusion today. I've had the utmost confidence in this investigation and in Chief Fry, as well as in Mr. Bill Thompson and the Latah County Prosecutor's Office, who've been a great partner throughout this. Nothing has deterred the commitment of the investigators who've worked on this case, regardless of the organization they represent. It's been very trying and very difficult, as you know, that it has been on those investigators as they do the tedious work that they're so good at doing. The partnerships is what's led here as well. The partnerships between Moscow Police Department, I'd like to express our appreciation with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, specifically the special agent in charge out of the Salt Lake City Division, Dennis Rice, and also the work that happened in the last 24 hours in Pennsylvania with the arrest with the Pennsylvania State Police and Colonel Evanchik with the Pennsylvania State Police. We appreciate what they've done across the nation to help us as well. As Bill shared, this investigation is far from over. In fact, I appreciate what he shared, that this is not an ending, but rather a new beginning. The difference now is, as he shared, that we are dictated what information we can share by the court process and by laws in our state of Idaho. And so we will share, as he shared, Mr. Thompson is absolutely committed to share everything he can share through the court process. We've got to make sure that we don't get in front of that process. And we really deeply appreciate everybody's support here. The relationships that were forged here and the partnerships that were forged have led to this. And based on that is why we're here today. And we continue to believe that the best way we can honor these 4 lives that have been taken is to make sure that we have a successful outcome here. One of the partnerships that's been forged throughout this is a partnership with the University of Idaho. And on that, I'd like to introduce the president of the University of Idaho, Mr. Scott Green.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Scott Green, President of the University of Idaho. Today's news and arrest is a welcome one. It's relief to our university, our community, and our extended Vandal family. The outpouring of support over the past.
I usually will skip this guy, but I'm going to let him actually talk tonight. I was debating on whether to let him talk, but I'll let him talk, because, usually it's just about the school and stuff, but yeah, we'll hear what he has to say. But no, the reason why this press conference was so important at the time was because, I don't know if you guys were all here from the beginning of this case, but at that point, we were sitting here for 6 weeks, not knowing who had unalived 4 university students. And we were kind of freaking out. Like, a lot of people were really freaking out. And there was a lot of speculation. There was a lot of rumors. There was a lot of, he did it. Maybe it was a girl. So, they got to let the public know, like, hey, we got an arrest. This is what's going on. And then, of course, they have to bring the guy from the school up because he has to tell he has to say what he has to say, his little piece for the school. But I think that they did a really good job. It would be hard for me to walk into that room and not have a smirk on my face, really. Just because you've worked so hard, 19,000 tips you went through, like, I don't know, all of that evidence, and you found his DNA. Like, I don't know. That's just a lot.
Past 6 weeks helped sustain us during the most trying time. They provided the strength that helped us navigate the international scrutiny visited on our students and employees. We are truly thankful for the compassion and acts of kindness shown to our community. Kindness is contagious, and it provided the light that reclaimed ground lost to evil and darkness. We first want to acknowledge and thank Governor Little for the early promise of financial support that enabled the university to secure our campus and focus on helping our students and our employees in the wake of the crimes. We also appreciate the Idaho State Police and the highly visible security presence that brought comfort and calm to a community shocked and confused by the senseless crimes. We never lost faith that this case would be solved and are grateful for the hard work of the Moscow Police Department and their law enforcement partners. Vast and committed FBI resources brought important expertise to this complex case. Across the board, dedicated, highly competent personnel worked this case to arrest. This crime has nevertheless left a mark on our university, our community, and our state. While we cannot bring back Maddie, Kaylee, Zaina, and Ethan, we can thoughtfully and purposefully carry their legacy forward in the work that we do. Our students come first, and that was proven each and every day of this investigation. We are committed to safely delivering the college town atmosphere, campus experience, and high-touch quality education for which the University of Idaho is known. With time, we will heal. We will move forward together, and we will remain Vandal strong. With that, I'd like to turn it back over to Chief Fry.
So now we will open the floor to questions. However, I want to remind everyone, as Prosecutor Bill Thompson explained, any factual information regarding the arrest of Kohberger is currently sealed per Idaho law and will not be released until he has appeared in an Idaho court. Please formulate your questions accordingly. I recognize there are a lot of questions, and I will try to answer as many of them as I can.
Lauren Patterson, Northwest Public Broadcasting, Spokane Public Radio. I realize the records are sealed. I guess I'm not too familiar with how it works, but can you tell us what tip, what lead, what piece of evidence really led you all the way from Idaho to the suspect in Pennsylvania?
As I've said in the past, that's part of our investigation, and we won't be releasing that at this time. We will have those answers. We'll have them as soon as we can make those available to you.
Then a quick follow-up and a two-parter. Is our community safe, or is law enforcement still on the search for other suspects who might be involved in this attack?
What I can tell you is we have an individual in custody who committed these horrible crimes, and I do believe our community is safe, but we still need to be vigilant, right? We still have talked about this in the past. We always need to be aware of our surroundings and make sure that we're aware of what's going on.
Hi, Chief. How soon into the investigation did police and law enforcement begin to spot Mr. Kohberger as a potential suspect? And a follow-up, how many tips, if you can say, were specifically related?
I have a serious question. I have a serious question for some of you guys. I really do. So for you guys that are, saying that the police are involved or that Bryan didn't do this, that it was the roommates, that it just wasn't Bryan, right? It just wasn't Bryan. Okay. Well, then who did it? Also, let's just release Bryan Kohberger, but would you think about this for a minute before you answer in the chat? Think about this for a good minute. Would you live beside Bryan Kohberger? Would you say, come on and live with me? I mean, that's an honest question. If you can think about that for a minute and you can say, yep, I sure would live next to Bryan Kohberger because I think he's that innocent, then make sure you put it in the chat, because then you guys must know something that I don't know. And there's going to be a lot of DNA in that house. It was a party house. Did you see all the red Solo cups, all of the beer bottles, all of the dishes, all of the everything? There was kids in and out of that house all the time. There was kids in that house when they weren't even there. So. Okay. Yeah, you're really getting on my nerves. So I'm going to play this for a minute and then we'll see how it
Related
goes.
to Mr. Kohberger.
To the tip part, honestly, I can't answer that question, so I'm not even going to speculate on that. On the other part, that's part of our investigation and it will come out. I'd like the mic to please come right over here.
Thank you. Dana Griffin with NBC News. Can you confirm that Kohberger asked whether or not anyone else had been arrested when he was in custody?
I cannot confirm that, or I'm not sure of that information, but that would still be a part of our investigation.
Did CODIS initially return any hits on this guy?
That's still part of our investigation. That will come out. If we could get somebody over here, please.
And then one final question. Is there any message to the online sleuths who slandered and harassed people who they believed were responsible?
There was a lot of speculation going on, and we've always said from the very beginning that we're the official message that comes out, and to pay attention to what we're putting out there to the press.
I'm Nancy Liu with News Nation, and we were over at the house this morning, and you told us that the remediation would begin today. It was suddenly stopped. Can you tell us why?
Yes. The house cleanup has been halted, and that came by a legal request from the court.
Christina Corbin, Fox News. Chief, have you identified a motive?
That is part of the investigation, and that will come out as we continue the investigation. But what we still ask is for people to continually send us things in the tip line. We are still looking for more information. We're still trying to build that picture, just like we have stated all along. We're putting all the pieces together, and that will help.
Chief Veronica Miracle with CNN. Any indication that the suspect knew the victims?
That's part of the investigation as well. It won't be something that will come out at this point in time, but as we continue the investigation and as this case goes to trial, that will be brought forth.
Have you spoken to the families? Can you tell us what they've told you today?
Are you talking the victims' families? Yeah, we have reached out to the victims' family as we always do. We've done that daily, and we've continued to have contact with them.
Hey, Nate Sanford, you mentioned earlier that you're still seeking tips about Bryan and that people should still share whatever information they have. Can you speak at all about what specifically people should be reaching out for, like if they know something?
I would say anything and everything. As we've said all along, we know what tips we're looking for. We will take those tips and we will have professionals look at those and decide which pieces of those we need to use for our case. So we ask that everybody would do that.
Angela Palermo, Idaho Statesman. Your department and other investigators on the case took a lot of flack for keeping information close to your chest. Are you glad that you did that? And were you worried about tipping the suspect off?
I will 100% stand behind the way that we handled this investigation. And this all started from day one with our patrol officers arriving on scene, locking down the scene, us calling in the Idaho State Police, us calling in the FBI, and keeping information that was pertinent to this case very, very tight. We want to have a situation where when this goes to trial, there is no doubt that we've done everything right and we've slowed down and we've continued to slow down. We'll continue to do that.
Hey, Chief. Have you guys found the murder weapon or the Hyundai Elantra?
So we are still looking for all pieces of evidence, but we are still looking for the weapon. And I will say that we have found an Elantra.
Stephanie Becker with CNN. Can you tell what it was like when you got the phone call when the police told you that they had your suspect?
I can tell you, for a lot of law enforcement, it was a fairly sleepless couple of days with as we were leading up to everything that we were doing. But what I can tell you is I have faith in those agencies across the nation. I have faith in our officers. I have faith in the FBI, and they did a great job. But sure, there was some times, even throughout the day, that we were always concerned.
Hi, Chief. Don, you're back at CBS News. Can you talk a little bit more about the suspect's connection to Pennsylvania?
All I know is that he lives in Pennsylvania.
Chief Guy Tannenbaum from Nonstop Local KHQ in Spokane. More about the Elantra. We saw reports that you mentioned that you recovered an Elantra, but can you specify where that was found? And we know that that was one of the biggest pieces of information you were asking from the public to tip. Were you able to provide an information on whether those tips led to this seizure of an Elantra?
That's still part of the investigation that will come out in the future.
Chief Glenn Mosley, Idaho Public Radio here in Moscow. The additional police presence in town and on campus, semester's coming. Is that going to continue?
You will continue to see state troopers in the area. You know, we're talking to Latah County as well. You will see a presence of us that we're always have up on campus. We have assigned officers to that. So you will continue to see a law enforcement presence. I'm going to take two more questions.
Hi, Chief. Julie Scott, ABC News. Can you tell us if you eventually had a license plate number to the Elantra and how you tracked it to Pullman?
That's still part of the investigation that will come out.
Chief, hi, Matt Lovelace with the Murrow College of Communication. I want to ask about Mr. Kohberger as a graduate student at WSU. Are you aware of if he returned to campus after November 13th? And have you had any communication with departments on the WSU campus about his attendance?
So some of that is going to be followed up as we continue our investigation. We'll be asking some of those questions, but that'll come out in the near future. So what I do want to do is I want to thank you all. You really have been the national voice for us. You've given us the opportunity to get many, many tips. And I do appreciate everything you've done, and we'll continue to look forward to working with you in the future on this. So I'd like to thank you for that, and thank you for your time.
Okie dokie. So that was the press conference. That I haven't watched that in a long time. That did seem like it had been a while. One of you guys in the chat when we first were playing it was like, this seems like it's been forever. I think it was Susie actually. And it does feel like it's been a long time. We're coming up almost on a year. I mean, a couple months. It doesn't feel like that. I mean, it does, but it doesn't at the same time. But we'll keep it going along. I was going to read a little article for you guys that had Bryan's arrest on it. I'm just kind of like going in order, you know, if I can find it. There it is. And then we'll read over the just the third, like, because that's the ending of the Moscow Police Department's website. And then we'll watch the there's like a couple little videos I was going to show you guys, and then we'll watch that documentary or podcast. And I was just reading the chat a little bit. BK, unlike the commercial, he's not having it his way. That was pretty funny. That was pretty good. That was. And that's for sure. This is an Idaho newspaper that I got this from too. Let me see if I can make it a little bit like bigger. I can. Oh, that was that was a lot. My hands up like they're like too soft or something. Okay, there we go. Sorry, Bill Thompson. Really hide your face up there. So there's Bryan. That was the first picture that we got of Bryan Kohberger when he was arrested. This is what we got to see. We were and I'll show you some more pictures too from when they were like taking him from the plane to the truck and doing all of that. So that's like this is when we first saw him over here though. Or this is from Monroe. I'm sorry, Monroe. A Washington State University student has been arrested in Pennsylvania in connection with the November 13 slayings of 4 University of Idaho students. Bryan Christopher Kohberger, 28, was arrested in Pennsylvania's Pocono Mountain region, according to NBC or ABC News. He was arrested at a location where he had been staying. Kohberger appeared in a Pennsylvania court Friday morning and faces 4 first-degree murder charges and a first-degree felony burglary, stemming from the break-in and stabbing spree at a house near the University of Idaho's campus. Oh, sorry guys, I'm gonna slow chat just a little bit more. I'm gonna slow the chat down just a little bit more, but it won't affect anybody that is a member. It's gonna be like, I don't know. See what that does. See if that helps it any, because we it's just going a little fast for us, I guess. Okie dokie. According to a Monroe County, Pennsylvania court document, Kohberger was being held for extradition to Idaho on the murder warrant. He is being held without bond in Pennsylvania and has been appointed a public defender. Latah County prosecutor Bill Thompson said during a news conference Friday. An extradition hearing is scheduled for Tuesday. If Kohberger does not waive extradition, Idaho authorities will begin the extradition process through the governor's office, Thompson said. And then this is about the suspect. So this came out the day after that he was arrested. Kohberger lives in Pullman, Washington, the home of Washington State University, located about 8 miles from the University of Idaho Moscow campus. The Associated Press reported Friday morning on Kohberger's connection to Washington State, where he was a doctoral student in the Department of Criminal Justice and Criminology. Kohberger is also identified as a teaching assistant in the Criminal Justice and Criminology graduate program, according to Washington State website found through an Idaho Education News online search. I went to school for criminal justice and applied science, so. The U of I has no records linking Kohberger to the university, President C. Scott Green said in a memo to students and employees Friday. While Kohberger lived in Pullman, the Monroe County, Pennsylvania court document lists Kohberger's place of residence as Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. Kohberger received a bachelor's degree in 2020 from DeSales University in Center City, Pennsylvania, completing graduate studies at the university in June. As a Catholic community, we are devastated by this senseless tragedy, the university said in a statement Friday. According to the Times News in Layton, Pennsylvania, Kohberger was employed as a security guard at Pennsylvania's Pleasant Valley School District from 2018 to 2021. During a news conference Friday afternoon, Thompson, Moscow Police Chief James Fry, and Idaho State Police Director Kendrick Wills released only a few details about their arrest, saying the court proceedings will dictate what they can and cannot say publicly. We've got to make sure we don't get out ahead. We don't get out ahead of that process. Many factual details about the arrest and the evidence against Kohberger are contained in a probable cause affidavit. That document will remain sealed until Kohberger is served with an Idaho arrest warrant, Thompson said. Please have patience with us on that. Fry declined to discuss a positive motive for the slayings. He said police are continuing to search for the weapon used in the fatal stabbings. He also said police have recovered an Elantra, a reference to 2011 to 2013 white Hyundai Elantra, which has been linked to the crime scene in the early morning hours of November 13th. Fry did not elaborate on where the car was recovered, but Fry indicated that police believe Kohberger acted alone. We have an individual in custody, Fry said. I do believe our community is safe. Friday's arrest comes 47 days after the U of I students were found dead in an off-campus house. 47 days, wow. The victims, Ethan Chapin, 20, a freshman from Mount Vernon, Washington; Kaylee Gonzalez, 21, a senior from Rathdrum; Xana Kernodle, 20, a junior from Post Falls; and Madison Mogan, 21, a senior from Coeur d'Alene, died from multiple stab wounds. 2 of the victims were found dead in the second floor of the house. The other 2 victims were found dead on the third floor. 2 other residents of the house were present during the attack but were unhurt. The slayings drew international media scrutiny and shook close-knit U of I campus community. Is the chat better? Are we good? An unknown number of students stayed home for the end of the fall semester, as police shared few details about their investigation and walked back initial comments suggesting the community was not at risk. We never lost faith in that this crime would be solved, U of I President Scott Green said Friday. Our students come first, and this was proven each and every day in the investigation. The U of I will reopen for spring classes on January 11th. When class resumes, Moscow Police and ISP will have a continued presence on campus, Fry said. As we were prepared to begin a new semester, I hope that a new sense of confidence takes hold among students, parents, faculty, and the entire University of Idaho and Moscow communities, State Board of Education Vice President Linda Clark said in a statement Friday. For nearly 7 weeks, the murder investigation drew considerable criticism, with few breakthroughs released publicly. Even on Thursday, Moscow police reiterated that no suspect had been identified in the case. Updates will be provided when new information is available for release, police said in a statement. And before news broke of the arrest, police began working with a private company for cleanup at the rental house, although police said the residence remained an active crime scene. I think that's actually what we were watching on the live when we found out, like, something else. That's maybe when we found out. I'm not sure, but I remember we were watching that on the live. So it says renovation activities include removing potential biohazards and other harmful substances used to collect evidence, police said Thursday. There is no timeline for completion, but the property will be returned to the property management company when finished. The cleanup was suspended at the court's request, Fry said Friday. The arrest comes after police processed more than 9,025 email tips, 4,575 phone tips, and 6,050 digital media submissions, and conducted more than 300 interviews. Authorities urged the public to continue to provide tips about the case and about Kohberger, emphasizing that their investigation is not over. This is a new beginning, Thompson said. Asked to reflect on the investigation so far, Fry defended the decision to release only limited information on the case. I'll 100% stand behind the way we handled this investigation. I think that's all of it. Yeah, that's it. All of it. I thought that kind of like had a little bit of everything in there. So I was just trying to read the chat for a minute. Let me get my notes back up. Not sure where we were. Okay. I think I'll. Okay, I'm just going to play this. Okay, so I'm going to play this video here, and then we'll just kind of like, we'll just play, we'll talk about it. We'll play and we'll talk about it. It's going to be over Bryan when he was first arrested. It says, Moscow murder suspect moved from Pennsylvania jail, headed to Idaho. And then I have some pictures from his trip over. If you guys were back in the YouTube world, back when he made his travels from Pennsylvania to Idaho, you would have saw that they really made sure that nobody could get to him to hurt him. Oh, I'm not even on. I thought I was on camera there. That's a little bit too much. But there you go. Like that they weren't like they literally put like a helmet on him when they took him from the plane and put him in the car, so that nobody could like shoot him. They really were trying to make their like due diligence, you know. You'll have to send me that list. I was trying to look for some Nancy Grace stuff today because I played all of her stuff over on our lives. You have to let me know where you saw it. Because I was like, oh, I would love to have some of hers. Because when she was in Moscow, that was really good. I was trying to look for that one, but I couldn't find it anywhere. But anyway, I'm going to play this for you guys. This is like basically the first time we got to see Bryan when he walked through this hallway. That was the first time that we, other than on the plane, or no, this was the first time he wasn't even on the plane yet. This was when he was in Pennsylvania. So. Yep, Steve, you're right. Yeah, it does happen where they do. I mean, they plan it and it's just one mass unaliving at once. I'll turn the volume up on this slowly so it doesn't hurt your little ears. If you guys wouldn't mind just taking a second to hit the thumbs up button, it really helps the channel grow and it'll get the video out so more people can come in, chat with you guys and enjoy it. And if you don't mind, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We love to have you. We'd love to have you. And I will put the channel membership in the chat if anybody would like to become a member. We would love to have you. And we are going to do a members live tomorrow, Sunday.
After being transferred from Monroe County Jail, he made his first public court appearance in Pennsylvania for the murder of 4 University of Idaho students yesterday. He waived extradition and is now headed to Moscow. Right now, we are waiting to learn exactly when he will arrive in Idaho to face 4 first-degree murder charges. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us here on Up with Krem. I'm Tim Pham.
And I'm Channing Curtis. Now, Kohberger's arrest is definitely welcome news for the families of those 4 victims. And those families are now waiting for him to arrive in Idaho so that he can be formally arrested and charged.
So let's get right to Nicole Hernandez, who is live in Moscow right now as we wait for Kohberger to arrive. Nicole, what do we know about his extradition and the court appearance that happened yesterday? Good morning.
Good morning, Tim Channing. So we did call Monroe County Correctional over in Pennsylvania. Again, they confirmed that Bryan Kohberger is now in Pennsylvania State Police custody. We're still working to figure out exactly what time that transfer of custody happened. This movement, though, happening less than 24 hours after courts confirmed the extradition process to be started to get Kohberger from Pennsylvania back here to North Idaho. What we know right now is that could be as early as this morning, or he could get here as late as next Friday. We are here at Latah County Jail here in Moscow. We are keeping an eye here on the area as we wait for this to happen. Yesterday, the murder suspect was in Pennsylvania court. The courtroom did not allow cameras inside, but we know he was in the room for about 20 minutes. He waived his right to an extradition hearing, meaning that he just accepted that extradition back here to Idaho. Here's video of deputies escorting him out of the courthouse after his appearance. Now they have 10 days to get the suspect the 2,500 miles from Pennsylvania to here in Idaho. We are also keeping an eye on the jail roster here at Latah County Jail online. At this point, the suspect's name and information is not in that system. In Moscow, Nicole Hernandez, KREM 2 News.
Nicole Hernandez with those breaking details. Thank you. Well, since the quadruple homicide, the victims' families, community, and nation have been waiting to know what happened in the early hours of November 13th. But late yesterday afternoon, KREM 2 learned we are not going to be getting any of those answers from anyone involved with the case. So Moscow police announcing they are no longer allowed to share any information about the investigation because of a judge's order. In that order, it also limits investigators, law enforcement, and attorneys from talking about information in the case that is not public record. This is called a non-dissemination order, and according to documents obtained by KREM 2, it will be in place until a verdict is reached.
Now, we also heard from the Pennsylvania State Police for the first time since Kohberger's arrest. Following the extradition hearing, we finally got some answers. Jack Culkin from our Pennsylvania station has more on how investigators were able to find Kohberger.
Bryan Kohberger, the man accused of killing 4 students from the University of Idaho, will leave Pennsylvania sometime in the next 10 days. He showed up in person to a hearing at the Monroe County Courthouse, where he agreed to be taken back to Idaho.
Arrangements currently are being made to deliver Kohberger back to Idaho.
where he can have continued due process and face these charges.
In a news conference following Kohberger's extradition hearing, state police and the Monroe County District Attorney's Office finally answered some questions relating to Kohberger's arrest this past Friday in Chestnut Hill Township.
There was ample probable cause for the issuance of the various warrants in the case. I was surprised, really, Monroe County of all places. It hits close to home.
State police said that they became involved in the investigation after they were contacted by the FBI, but they would not say exactly when they were contacted. They obtained several search warrants before arresting Kohberger in the early morning hours of Friday, December 30th, at his home in the Indian Mountain Lake Estates development.
One was for the person of Mr. Kohberger, one was for the white Elantra vehicle, and one was for the address, the residence itself that he was living in.
Mr. Kohberger was taken into custody without incident. The scene was turned over to the FBI Evidence Response Team for processing.
State police would not say exactly when they became involved in the case. The DA's office got involved sometime after that.
My office's role was relatively recent. We weren't advised of the presence of the defendant in our county until only a couple days before the apprehension of the defendant.
Jack Culkin, Newswatch 16, Monroe County.
So we also obtained new police body camera video connecting the suspect to that white Hyundai Elantra police said they were looking for last month.
So in this video, you can actually see the trooper pulling up and approaching the car here. This happened in Indiana again, and troopers say they stopped the car for following too closely. For just a second, you're about to see Bryan Kohberger right there. He's there in that driver's seat. Now, we are keeping the passenger anonymous at this time, but what is important to note is the date on the video. That's December 15th. That's just 8 days after the Moscow Police Department started asking the public for information about a white Hyundai Elantra. Now, this new body camera footage is the second time that law enforcement pulled Kohberger over.
Yeah, actually, on that same day, a deputy from the Hancock County Sheriff's Department stopped him as well. Indiana State Police say the trooper didn't have the information on Kohberger at the time or the license plate number of the car Idaho detectives were looking for. In the body camera footage, we can see the license plate number of the car Kohberger was driving. And in our More to Every Story commitment, we dug deeper and ran that license plate number through an online database. We found out the vehicle was originally registered in Pennsylvania, but on November 18th of this year, the owner re-registered the car in Pullman to get Washington plates. That's actually just 5 days after Kohberger allegedly stabbed all 4 students. So we did reach out to the Washington Department of Licensing to confirm Kohberger is the one who registered to that car. So we haven't heard back yet, but we do know he was the one driving that Elantra in that Indiana State Police body camera footage. And the strides being made in this case come, of course, as the community continues to remember those 4 students whose lives were lost.
Those 4 students were 20-year-old Ethan Chapin, a freshman from Conway, Washington, Xander Kernodle, a junior from Post Falls, Idaho, 21-year-old Madison Mogan, a senior from Coeur d'Alene. Now, Xana and Madison actually worked together at a restaurant in downtown Moscow. And 21-year-old Kaylee Gonsalves. She was a senior from Rathdrum, Idaho, and was a sorority member and had already lined up a job for after graduation. Just a month ago, a vigil was held for the victims where their parents spoke about the love they have for their children.
The world is a darker place without them, but the light of their love and memories will always guide us all. Maddie has truly been a blessing in our lives. Watching her grow and mature into the amazing woman she become is truly priceless in our hearts.
Xana, you will not be forgotten. You have impacted so many lives and have given people so much love. I hope I can make you proud and try to leave an impact on this world and on people like you did.
If you knew Ethan, he was never angry about anything. He would never get upset. You couldn't upset him ever.
We're just heartbroken, and we know it's just going to take time for everybody to heal. If that's possible. I just pray that it is.
Now, of course, this continues to be a developing story, so we will bring you more updates as we learn more. But for all of our previous coverage, you can text us the word Idaho to our number 509-448-2000. We'll send you a link right to your phone with all those details.
I don't know who that guy was, but okay. Thank you guys all for being here. We are going to move it along. We're going to move it all along. But that was, I just wanted to play you that little clip because I thought that was a pretty good little video. It kind of shows you Bryan's, him coming from Pennsylvania over to Moscow. And then I had some pictures I was going to show you before I played the podcast for you guys. Don't play that video. That's so, I hate that one that, like, if you go on a tab, it starts playing the video. Because I don't know if you guys have, if everyone has seen these. I'm assuming that most of us have, but I know that there's always people that haven't, seen everything that we've seen. So I found this Daily Mail article, and I'm not going to read the article, but I just found the pictures and the videos were pretty, interesting. So that's them walking in from the plane. And I didn't think of this. This isn't, I don't know who actually brought this up, but it was somebody I think in chat. And I was like, wow, I never thought of that about that, but that makes a good point. Wasn't Bryan, wasn't he terrified of planes? That's why his dad flew over to Washington to drive him back home, because he didn't like airplanes. Because if he doesn't like airplanes and they brought him back in that little 6-passenger helicopter plane looking thing, he was probably freaking out. Just saying. Texas Ranger, absolutely. No parent. No. Sent him 2 of these. Richie. They kicked me out of their subgroup. I was trying to get in there with the Bryan's girls. They infiltrated me. I'll play this little video too. This is of the plane coming in. I remember us watching this. It was like Santa Claus. Like when Santa is like flying over and you like are checking to see where Santa's landed. It was just like that. Out loud. That's not. I knew that was going to do that. I knew that was going to do that. I was like, I knew that as soon as I did it. I'll just open up another window next time. Okay, there we go. And then there's like another picture there. They might have drugged him to travel. They might have, Fred. They'd probably want him to be fully alert though, because if he says anything that he's under drugs, they wouldn't be able to use that in court. But yeah, they had all kinds of cameramen were set up. It was definitely something. Like you can see all the camera people and everything right here. All their little lights. And then I think this is like the next, like this one just shows him coming. I don't really have to have the volume up because it's just air. I wonder how long of a flight that was. I can't even remember. A couple hours, a few hours. I mean, obviously you could tell it was the middle of the night. Missed. I thought about putting her up on another panel. I need to do that. I keep forgetting because I can use my phone and just open up another StreamYard tab. I thought that'd be really funny. Just have like Nancy below me or above me. So it looks like she's here on panel with me. People be freaking out. Tanya got Nancy. I'll be like, yeah, I did. Oh, and then that's just him going to court. Okay. So I'm just going to play this short video. It's 2 minutes, 53 seconds, and then we'll play the podcast. And then I have like pictures to go behind, the podcast, because it's not like a video. It's just like the words, but it's really good. And like I said, they came out with a couple new, parts of the series. So we can always watch those on another live as well. So let me throw this up there. If you guys don't mind just taking a second to hit the like button, it really helps your girl out. Appreciate you guys being here tonight. Saturday. Y'all could be doing whatever you guys do on Saturdays, but you're here with me. And I love that. You're here with us in the chat. We're your friends here. All right. I'm going to play this real quick. It's just going to kind of tie everything in. Actually, you know what I wanted to do? I wanted to read this really quick. because I want to make sure we're being thorough. Thorough, guys. I'm going to try to find it really quick so I don't have to. Okay. So basically, this is like the last press release that Moscow puts out for this case. Just make sure I didn't miss anything. Nope. And then this one. Nope. Okay. The other ones were just like document forms of this. So the Moscow Police Department is providing the following information to update the public on the ongoing homicide investigation and court process. On January 3rd, 2023, Latah County Magistrate Judge Megan Marshall issued a non-dissemination order in the regard to the murder case against Bryan C. Kohberger. The order prohibits any communication by investigators, law enforcement personnel, attorneys, and agents of the prosecuting attorney or defense attorney concerning this case. A copy of the order can be found on our website. Due to the court order, the Moscow Police Department will no longer be communicating with the public or the media regarding this case. And I actually remember them emailing me that back in the day. I forget what we asked them, because they answered something we asked them, and then they couldn't answer something else. I forgot about that. I have to look through my old emails. I think I still have them. I should. So, okay, this will just kind of tie all that in, and then we will be, up to the podcast part. Okay, maybe we're not playing this. Error has occurred, so we're not going to play it if it doesn't refresh. It was just like
Well, we have known the murders happened in the early morning hours back on November 13th.
Now, however, we are getting a much more detailed look at what investigators believe played out and some of the evidence left behind. So we now know investigators believe the deaths happened between 4 and 4:25 in the morning. Police say Xana Kernodle had received a DoorDash order at the house around 4 a.m. Cell phone data also shows she was likely awake at 4:12 a.m.
And before this, a surviving roommate who lived in the house told police something woke her up at around 4 o'clock in the morning. At 4:20 a.m., police say a vehicle matching the description of the white Hyundai Elantra was spotted speeding away from the scene. 18 pages tell terrifying details of the early morning hours of November 13th, including pinpointing the time of the alleged murders. The affidavit also describes how forensic evidence and video brought into focus a suspect and his movements before and after the crime. But some of the most startling information comes from one of the two survivors inside the home at the time of the murders. In the document, the roommates are not identified by name. Both roommates telling authorities the four victims were all home by 2 a.m. and in their rooms by about 4. But the document also tells the story of how one survivor reported coming face to face with the suspect. One of the surviving roommates told investigators that at about 4 a.m. in her room on the second floor, a noise awoke her. She thought it sounded like Kaylee Gonzalez playing with her dog on the third floor. A short time later, the roommate said she thought she heard Gonzalez say something to the effect of, "There's someone here." Next, court documents show she opened her door but didn't see anything. Authorities say it could have been Xana Kernodle talking as she was on TikTok at approximately 4:12 and still awake. The roommate then stated she opened the door a second time after hearing what she thought was crying coming from Kernodle's room. She explained she heard a male voice say something to the effect of, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." About 5 minutes later at 4:17, a nearby security camera picked up audio of what sounds like voices or a whimper, followed by a loud thud. Also, a dog can be heard barking numerous times. The roommate states she then opened the door for a third time after she heard crying and then saw what she described as a figure clad in black clothing and wearing a mask that covered his mouth and nose. She told authorities the man walked right toward her. She described him as being about 5 feet 10 inches tall, not very muscular, but athletically built with bushy eyebrows. She stood in what she described in the document as a frozen shock phase. In her statement, she said the man walked past her and toward the sliding glass door. And that's when she said she locked herself in the room after seeing the man. Investigators believe the suspect then left, leaving behind 4 victims and a trail of evidence that ultimately led them to Bryan Kohberger.
I always have somebody like there at the end, like some random person on the screen. My cord's in the way. I hate when you can see my stupid cords hanging around. But welcome on in, all new members. I'm going to turn it on members only here in a moment. It's just members only in the chat. Like, so you guys can still watch the live and everything. It'll just be members only in the chat for the end of the live. I've been trying to do this on Saturdays. It's just a little perk of being a member. And then that way, because the chat gets a little crazy and then we can see each other. So, but we'd love to have you become a member. If you'd like to become a member, I'll put it in the chat and then I'm going to start playing the podcast and then I'll switch it over to members only in just a second. Let me get this up for us. And then trying to think of how to do this. Okay. So this is going to go over the arrest of Bryan Kohberger and his first court appearance. And just like just a little bit about his background and a little bit just like kind of like what we talked about, and Nancy kind of went over in the documentary yesterday, like how she was talking more about Bryan Kohberger. It'll be more about, just like him and his personality and how he was growing up in school, him on drugs, and then him, going into the PhD program. So I will be in the chatting with you guys. And then also, this isn't a video, it's just the words. So I did put some, I'll have some overlays. That way it'll be a picture. And so you have something to look at. So it'll be entertaining. I'm going to play this and I want to pause it and play it again because it always goes back to the beginning. It's weird. It's really weird.
College football is back. Ready for a comeback.
This brand has expanded into mealtime with their no purchase necessary.
Think that they knew that they had to end the person's
products and a cat-inspired
getaway.
getaway.
Leave it here.
Now until August 30th, submit who you think the perpetrator is at temptationstreats.com/cat-burglar. No purchase necessary.
Do you remember where you were when you found out about the arrest?
I remember hearing from somebody who's pretty reliable that something was coming soon. And I said, well, what's soon? And the person said, I think something's coming in about 3 weeks. And then 2 days later, they announced they're having a press conference.
Is that standard, by the way, to do that?
This was a case that garnered international attention. So I think that they knew that they had to let the public know as quickly as they could that an arrest had been made. So we get news that there's going to be a press conference. And we thought they're not having a press conference unless they've got something major to talk about. So we just started scouring around and I started texting people who I thought would know. And I got a picture back of a guy named Bryan Kohberger at Washington State University. And I thought to myself, who's this? This is a PhD student in criminology. This is the guy. So it was pretty stunning.
This is The Idaho Massacre, a production of KT Studios and iHeartRadio. Episode 2, The Face of Fear. I'm Courtney Armstrong, a television producer at KT Studios with Stephanie Lydecker, Jeff Shane, and Connor Powell.
This morning, authorities putting a face to the fear.
On Thursday, January 5th, 2023, University of Idaho murder suspect Bryan Kohberger made his first appearance in Idaho since his arrest. The day before, the 28-year-old criminology PhD student was extradited from his hometown in Albertsville, Pennsylvania.
Count 2 alleges that you committed the felony offense of murder in the first degree. Count 3, a murder in the first degree. Count 4, a murder in the first degree. Count 5, a murder in the first degree.
After the 4 charges of first-degree murder were read, Kohberger, wearing an orange prison jumpsuit and a vacant stare, spoke only to confirm he understood the charges.
The maximum penalty for this offense, if you plead guilty or are found guilty, is up to death and imprisonment for life. Do you understand?
Yes.
Kohberger's defense attorney, Ann Taylor, requested bail for her client. Leda County Magistrate Megan Marshall rejected the request. Kohberger was led away to his prison cell. But who is Bryan Kohberger? How did a little-known, mild-mannered graduate student become the only criminal suspect in a quadruple homicide? And if he is the murderer, why would someone who professed to want a career catching criminals become one? When police stormed Bryan Kohberger's family home in the early hours of December 30th, the sleepy community of Indian Mountain Lake Estates in Albertsville, Pennsylvania, became the epicenter of the investigation into the murders of Kaylee Gonsalves, Madison Mogan, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin.
And Indian Mountain Lake is billed as a Pocono resort community, and it's also a private gated community. And not all private communities in the Poconos are gated, but all gated communities are private, if that makes sense.
That's Rod Devine speaking to producer Jeff Shane. Rod Devine is a nationally known licensed private detective. His firm is Devine Intervention Detective Services and has offices in Allentown, Pennsylvania, which is about 40 minutes from Bryan Kohberger's parents' home.
They get to bill themselves as a Pocono resort, but it's not, we're not talking about a strongly wooded area. If you probably would go into Indian Mountain Lake, you would find medium to upper middle class people in neighborhoods that have homes not unlike any other neighborhood.
It sounds like what you're saying is it's just pretty normal. Like it's a standard neighborhood.
It's a standard neighborhood, absolutely. And if you go another 40 minutes to an hour, you're going to get to those places where you probably have envisioned in your mind that are cabins that are in the woods and your next neighbor over or in between you and a bunch of trees and things like that. That's very real, and that's not too far from where this Indian Mountain Lake is. To use your terminology, and it's very normal. It's a single dwelling. It's it's a regular neighborhood, and it's not deep in a rural wooded area.
Is there anything about it that stands out or that would make it that you would walk past it and be like, you know what I mean? Like based on the pictures, it just looks like every other house in that neighborhood.
It is. You wouldn't look twice about it if you're walking in that community because it's one of many the same. There's nothing that stands out about it.
According to public documents, the Kohbergers moved to Pennsylvania from New York.
I grew up in New Jersey myself, and I was born in Brooklyn. So it's not unusual to see people from New York and New Jersey gravitate to the Pocono area. I've got a home currently in the Poconos, and a lot of my neighbors are New York City cops, ex-New York City cops. There's a lot of firemen and things like that. So that's very normal. And I guess if we're looking for normalcy, these guys meet that if you look at on paper. I mean, they've got mom and dad's got 3 kids. Mom and dad are from New York, got a house up in the Poconos. It seems like they've lived up there for close to 30 years. On paper, these guys are very quote unquote normal from what I've seen of this guy. And he doesn't seem a little off until you start hearing about the backstory, and that is where sometimes you have to stand back and look at things a little bit closer, because it's a lot easier to look at someone after you've got a story and say, yeah, he seems a little bit off. There's no one that wears that hat that says, I'm going to mug you, or I'm going to rape you, or I'm going to kill you. You just don't know.
If Bryan Kohberger is the killer behind the gruesome Idaho murders, he is anything but normal. But what in his background could explain his actions? Here's Jeff and Stephanie.
28-year-old Bryan Kohberger is a criminology student getting his PhD at Washington State University, which is about 15 to 20 minutes from Moscow in Idaho. We also know that Bryan Kohberger drives a white Hyundai Elantra, which is potentially a key piece of evidence.
If in fact what Bryan Kohberger is accused of turns out to be true, he is the scariest person alive. But it's almost as though he would be the real life Dexter. Dexter is this fictitious character from a scripted series where this very smart and fairly functional guy turns out to actually be the serial killer. It's also like that scripted series on Netflix called You, where the killer is just this ordinary guy, some unexpected murderer who works at a bookshop. But this is not pretend, and he is not a character. He's not wearing a Halloween mask and some black cloak over himself like you would see in a scary movie. This is just an unassuming PhD student who lives allegedly a few miles away from the victims.
For years, the Kohbergers lived in Effort, Pennsylvania, a small town near where Bryan was arrested. Both his parents, Michael and Marianne, worked for the Pleasant Valley School District, the same one where Bryan would attend high school. This is the same school district where Kohberger and his two sisters attended school.
According to the people we spoke to, the Kohbergers lived a very, air quotes, normal middle-class life. And from a young age, friends say that Bryan was a bit shy, that he was very awkward, but that he desperately wanted to be an Army Ranger or a police officer.
He was pretty normal. He was definitely heavier set, and that caused issues in school.
As a young kid, Kohberger was overweight and was often bullied. Then he lost 100 pounds his senior year in high school. But it wasn't only his appearance that changed. His demeanor did as well. The dramatic change, according to people who knew Bryan Kohberger, stems from his time in the law enforcement vocational program in high school.
It's interesting because when he was being enrolled in our program, we were told that this was all he wanted, protective services, that this was something that he had been dreaming of for a long time, that he had been working toward for a long time. And so to find out that kind of went awry to the degree that it did was very surprising, to be honest. So, however, with that said, after he had been enrolled, there were some circumstances that led us to believe that maybe there were going to be some difficulties in Bryan's life that weren't going to contribute to him having an easy time of it. It wasn't going to be just ending up in the police academy kind of thing for him. It was going to be a little bit more of a challenge for him to get there.
Is a former school administrator who oversaw student discipline and mental health at Bryan Kohberger's high school. She remembers him well because of the passion Kohberger had for becoming a police officer.
But the reason that I remember his application was because of the way the guidance counselor just really played it up, how it was, all he wanted.
However, she says Kohberger struggled in the law enforcement program.
He was a leader in his class. He absolutely was. He took the class extremely seriously. And so in that regard, it was evident that that was really something he was very interested in doing as a career. However, even though he was a leader in the class, that sometimes leaders don't always get the respect that they should.
At some point in Kohberger's junior year, there was an incident with other students. Says she can't elaborate about the specific incident because of legal reasons. Here's speaking with Jeff Shane.
Protective services and health occupations were the only two programs in our school where clearances were required to be, as a student, to be in those programs. So you were judged a little bit more carefully in those programs. Therefore, if you have an infraction that could potentially, as an adult in the field, be a big employment issue for you, then we would very seriously look at removing you from the program. So a situation occurred where a complaint was made, and the teacher reported it to me and said, this is not something we can have. An investigation needed to be conducted. Other students were interviewed. Bryan was interviewed. And, there comes a time when decisions have to be made, whether it's the decision the student wants or not.
It must be such a tough position
It's
for
horrible.
you to be in because it's his, it's someone's dream.
It's horrible. Yeah, it is. And especially because by virtue of what I do with special education and guidance, like I said, I'm all about second chances. But and I recognize that these are still kids, but because of these two programs, we don't have a whole lot of latitude there and ability for forgiveness. However, with that said, and as you may know, it doesn't mean that you can't transition into another program that doesn't have the requirement of clearances. He was removed from protective services and transitioned into HVAC. And then at the end of that 11th grade year is when he decided not to return as a senior.
Do you remember what he was feeling like when that transition happened?
I believe he was going through other stuff that was not a part of what was happening at our school. So my feeling was that he was defeated, because it's the only thing you ever wanted in life and you have it. And now that's falling through. But then something else that's going on in your life that's not even relevant to that is also causing angst. And so I think it was just a lot of defeat.
You wouldn't describe it as angry or upset. It was more just like he was sad.
Yeah. Yep. I don't think that maybe he necessarily grasped the depth and breadth of the issue at hand. So I think there was frustration as to not really understanding. I don't understand what the problem is. This is not a big deal, or this didn't happen. It wasn't like an anger, like an explosive anger or anything at all like that. It was just like, seriously, kind of thing. Do you know what I mean?
I just wanted to pause that for a second and put me back on this. Well, I don't know why I did all that, because now I forget what I was going to say. So I'm going to go back to the podcast because okay, this is what I was going to say. So this is the second teacher or a school official now that's come forward that we've heard in the last 2 days. I thought when I was listening to this earlier that this was the same lady as last night, but it's not. So this is a different school official, and she's going to talk to us. I guess she's going to talk to us about Bryan doing some stuff at school to some people that he shouldn't have been doing some stuff to. She can't really get into specifics, but she's like tries to let you know what it is without really having to say it. So apparently he kind of has went his whole life having these problems. Now, maybe it was the drugs, but I don't know if he was on the drugs at that point in high school, but he could have been. And it could have been that. I'll play this and I'll put the pictures back up.
Did this happen a lot where students had to be pulled or switched or any of that?
It happened, but it didn't happen a lot, particularly in programs like protective services and health occupations, because those kids really had to fight to get into those programs, so to speak, because there's such a long waiting list. And if you're chosen, not to screw it up, because if you screw it up, you don't get a second chance, kind of thing. If you're removed in your sophomore year or whatever, you don't get to come back again in your junior year or your senior year. That's it. You're done.
I see. So is that the type of infraction that kids would get pulled for, like behavior or cheating or drugs or like drinking, or is that like what are the types of infractions that would cause
To be removed from a program?
Yeah.
To be removed from a program, it has to be pretty severe. Again, the bar is pretty high when it comes to protective services and health. The level of expectation for behavior is held to a much higher standard there. But in the other programs, if it's a drug offense, then you're just out. If it's something that's really egregious, otherwise we let law enforcement handle it. You get suspended, you do your time, and you come back. But that kind of thing is not an option in a program like protective services, because again, in the field, you wouldn't be able to do that and still get your job back.
Knowing what allegedly we know now about what he did versus like what he wanted to become, how do you wrap your head around that?
It's interesting because ultimately and I have to be careful what I say, but like ultimately what had him removed from the program, when I look back on it now, makes sense. And I don't know, and that probably isn't clear for you at all. But the fact that he wanted law enforcement more than anything else in the world, if you look at it from just that perspective alone, not knowing what I know, then yeah, you'd be like, I can't, I'm so shocked. And in that respect, I am. But then I know another little piece, which is the piece that occurred at the school. And so then I'm like, but see, that makes sense. When I heard about the murders, it was actually the school guidance counselor that said, "Did you hear?" And I'm like, "What?" But she said to me, "Did you hear about Bryan?" And I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about." She said, "Turn on the news." And then I was like, oh my God. But with that said, I was shocked, but it made sense.
Let's stop here for a break. We'll be back in a moment. Have you heard?
I'm going to fast forward through the commercial, but so as you did hear from that lady, she's saying that she can't really come out and tell anybody, but there was an incident with I mean, from what she's telling us, pretty much without her telling us, there was an incident with a student or a couple of students, and this would have been back in high school when he was at the trade program for to become an officer. So I'm wondering, because she says it makes sense now. She kept saying that. Now it makes sense. There was no essay or anything. So if it was like a girl that he was threatening or like something like that, you would think it would be like I don't know, that would probably be tied into it somehow. I'm thinking, what if it was something to do with a knife? Like, what if he did threaten another student with a knife? I don't know if they give you those in that program, if you have like a knife or like some sort of, like belt with like tools or anything on it. But, just the way that woman kept saying, I can't really tell you, but it all makes sense now. Like that part really sticks with me. Unless there's just something else. I don't know. Let me fast forward through these little commercials.
Chance to win a whole
Has finally arrived. DraftKings Sports
Experience. It's called Living Land. It's got everything I love. Discovering, shopping.
from the law enforcement.
It's going to be epic.
Okay, I have to leave it here.
Living Land on Roblox. Loves it.
Friends say it was around the time of his dismissal from the law enforcement vocation program that Kohberger lost weight and his personality changed.
I am just in absolute shock right now.
Casey Arntz was 2 years ahead of Kohberger in high school. She and her brother Thomas were friends with him.
But in high school, dramatic changes washed over Kohberger, according to several friends.
She says Kohberger went from being overweight to rail thin, and both Casey and Thomas say they remember Kohberger as a bully.
Bryan Kohberger's childhood friend Thomas speaking to ABC News, describing the Idaho murder suspect as mean in high school, saying Bryan was eager to be seen as dominant.
He would just put me in, he would grapple me and put me in headlocks and arm bars and stuff like that.
Kohberger also took up boxing and increasingly styled himself as a dominant alpha male. Another friend, Rich Pasqua, knew the Kohberger family and worked with Kohberger at a pizza shop.
I met him through some friends, and they told me that he was a little weird, and he was a little socially awkward, I guess you could say. But he wasn't a bad guy.
However, Pasqua also offered an explanation for the sudden weight loss and dramatic personality change.
He did use drugs. That's how I really know him too. He was a big heroin addict, and so was I. I got 6 years clean now. I work in treatment and everything, but back then I was using, and so that's how I know for a fact he was using. I've got high with him a couple times.
After being kicked out of the law enforcement vocation program and opting not to return to the HVAC program after his junior year, Kohberger would graduate high school in 2013, finishing remotely online. At some point, he went to rehab and got clean. Kohberger began taking college classes in psychology and criminal justice at DeSales University in Pennsylvania. He graduated from DeSales with both an undergraduate and a master's degree. Michelle Bolger, a professor at DeSales, described Kohberger as a great writer and a brilliant student. She would later recommend him for a PhD program. Others say he was intelligent and nearly obsessive about criminology. But Kohberger was also described as creepy by others in the community.
2 years ago, a man he believes was Kohberger used to act so creepy to female customers, he had to tell them to stop. That Kohberger was asking people where they lived and who they lived with, if they were there alone, just very, very red flag questions.
Here again, Stephanie and Jeff.
I think that's one of the scarier parts about this case is the notion of someone being creepy. That's such a wide term. It's the person sitting next to you on an airplane or the person who moves into the apartment across the hall. We have to listen to our gut.
Yeah, Steph, I think hindsight is 20/20 in a case like this. All the behavior that Bryan exhibited at the time might have not meant anything, but now that we know what he's being accused of doing, we can kind of recontextualize it in our heads, and it kind of fits together like a puzzle to potentially something much more nefarious. But does all of that a killer make? We're not judge and jury. It's not up for us to decide. What we're trying to do is just break down the facts and let you, the listeners, come to your own conclusions.
What if he is innocent? I mean, he at this point says that he is innocent, and he claims that he had nothing to do with this. And if that's the case, then this person is really being tried in the press. And is that justice? Is that okay? But how does this ordinary guy from the Poconos in New York make a leap from being a student to a mass murderer? That is a huge jump. And again, he wrapped up his school session, hopped in his white Elantra with his dad, and road tripped across the country. Is that possible?
Here's reporter Anjanette Levy of the Law and Crime Network.
I think given the circumstances of this case, you have to kind of look at it and look at whether or not he was studying these things. If he's indeed the guy, if he's indeed factually guilty and he is the person who committed these crimes, I'm not talking about the legal standard. I think you have to kind of look at it and say, what was going on with him? Why was he studying this? Was this part of some type of motivation? What was his end game here? I think that we also have to just look at it through another lens too. Like, who is this guy? He is somebody who reportedly had addiction problems in high school. He had used heroin from everything we've learned through our reporting. He's also somebody who apparently had a hard time getting dates and, you know, really having close relationships with people. It sounds like he clashed with some of the people he was friends with when he was in high school. So I think there are a number of ways we have to look at this. If he's ultimately convicted, it could, you know, a lot of his background could become more relevant. Let's say that this is something he was planning for a couple of years. If he's indeed the guy and he was planning this, maybe there's something there. Maybe this is why he was doing it. You know, maybe this is why he was studying criminology and looking at these behaviors. But everything we learned was too that he said he wanted to do something like, you know, help rural police departments and stuff like that. So I don't know how studying serial killers or, you know, how that would factor into, I want to be a mass killer. I don't know how that would factor into that. Maybe he truly did want to do work to help small rural police departments. But I think we'll have to wait and see if any of this becomes relevant.
Let's stop here for another break. Have you heard? Temptations, America's #1 cat treats brand, has expanded.
Hey, this is Paris.
Hold on a second, guys,
all
sorry.
my favorite things into my new
Cover. Expands it into mealtime with their UGC. Not to return to the HVAC program after his junior year. Kohberger would graduate high school in 2013, finish
a couple times.
Okay, I'm just gonna leave it here because like when I went to fast forward it,
after
it
being
like
kicked
went
out
to
of
the
the law
beginning.
enforcement vocation program and opting not to return to the HVAC program after his junior year. Kohberger would graduate high school in 2013, finishing remotely online. At some point, he went to rehab and got clean. Kohberger began taking college classes in psychology and criminal justice at DeSales University in Pennsylvania. He graduated from DeSales with both an undergraduate and a master's degree. Michelle Bolger, a professor at DeSales, described Kohberger as a great writer and a brilliant student. She would later recommend him for a PhD program. Others say he was intelligent and nearly obsessive about criminology. But Kohberger was also described as creepy by others in the community.
2 years ago, a man he believes was Kohberger used to act so creepy to female customers, he had to tell them to stop. That Kohberger was asking people like where they lived and who they lived with, if they were there alone, just like very, very red flag questions.
Here again, Stephanie and Jeff.
I think that's one of the scarier parts about this case is the notion of someone being creepy. That's such a wide term. It's the person sitting next to you on an airplane or the person who moves into the apartment across the hall. We have to listen to our gut.
Yeah, Steph, I think hindsight is 20/20 in a case like this. You know, all the behavior that Bryan exhibited at the time might have not meant anything, but now that we know what he's being accused of doing, we can kind of recontextualize it in our heads, and it kind of fits together like a puzzle to potentially something much more nefarious. But does all of that a killer make? We're not judge and jury. It's not up for us to decide. What we're trying to do is just break down the facts and let you, the listeners, come to your own conclusions.
What if he is innocent? I mean, he at this point says that he is innocent, and he claims that he had nothing to do with this. And if that's the case, then this person is really being tried in the press. And is that justice? Is that okay? But how does this ordinary guy from the Poconos in New York make a leap from being a student to a mass murderer? That is a huge jump. And again, he wrapped up his school session, hopped in his white Elantra with his dad, and road tripped across the country. Is that possible?
Here's reporter Anjanette Levy of the Law and Crime Network.
I think given the circumstances of this case, you have to kind of look at it and look at whether or not he was studying these things. If he's indeed the guy, if he's indeed factually guilty and he is the person who committed these crimes, I'm not talking about the legal standard. I think you have to kind of look at it and say, what was going on with him? Why was he studying this? Was this part of some type of motivation? What was his end game here? I think that we also have to just look at it through another lens too. Like, who is this guy? He is somebody who reportedly had addiction problems in high school. He had used heroin from everything we've learned through our reporting. He's also somebody who apparently had a hard time getting dates and, really having close relationships with people. It sounds like he clashed with some of the people he was friends with when he was in high school. So I think there are a number of ways we have to look at this. If he's ultimately convicted, it could, a lot of his background could become more relevant. Let's say that this is something he was planning for a couple of years. If he's indeed the guy and he was planning this, maybe there's something there. Maybe this is why he was doing it. Maybe this is why he was studying criminology and looking at these behaviors. But everything we learned was too that he said he wanted to do something like, help rural police departments and stuff like that. So I don't know how studying serial killers or, how that would factor into, I want to be a mass killer. I don't know how that would factor into that. Maybe he truly did want to do work to help small rural police departments. But I think we'll have to wait and see if any of this becomes relevant.
Let's stop here for another break. Have you heard? Temptations, America's #1 cat treats brand, has expanded into mealtime with their all-new Temptations dry cat food. The food is so irresistible that a delivery truck was ambushed by a 4-legged suspect, and everyone needs your help to figure out who the mastermind is behind this perfect crime. This twisted tale of a cat burglary is unfolding in a limited podcast series called Catch a Cat Burglar, and you can become part of the investigation. Guess correctly for your chance to win a whole kit and caboodle of Temptations products and a cat-inspired getaway. Now until August 30th.
Discovering, shopping, collecting, partying with my friends.
I have to let the commercial play
And now
through.
celebrating her new podcast series, The History of the World's Greatest Nightclubs on iHeartRadio. Come live it up and jump through the portal to iHeartland for a quest to unlock a limited edition UGC item.
It's going to be epic. Now you're sliving. Sliving Land on Roblox. Loves it.
Football is back, and NFL Plus has you covered. Get NFL Plus, and you'll never miss a moment of live football action this season. With live, local, and primetime games on mobile, NFL Network, NFL Red Zone, live game audio, and more, all in one place. That's right. This season, get NFL Red Zone and NFL Plus Premium so you never miss a touchdown. That's every touchdown from every game, every Sunday during the regular season, across devices. Sign up today at plus.nfl.com. Terms and conditions apply.
If Bryan Kohberger was once a shy and awkward kid, by the time he arrived in Pullman, Washington for his PhD studies, he was a totally different man. Benjamin Roberts took several classes with Kohberger at WSU.
He seemed very comfortable around other people. He was fairly quick to offer his opinion and thoughts, and he was always participating fairly eagerly in classroom discussions.
But Roberts also said Kohberger had an aura of academic arrogance about him. He would describe things in the most complicated way. Roberts also said Kohberger liked to brag about his dating life.
At one point, he just idly mentioned, I can go down to a bar or a club and just have pretty much any lady I want.
Other classmates said Kohberger made inappropriate comments about the LGBTQ community and was often condescending towards women. One female doctoral student accused Kohberger of mansplaining during a particularly heated argument. As part of his PhD program, Kohberger was a teaching assistant in Washington State University's Department of Criminal Justice and Criminology.
When he came into class, he was very, not super mentally present. He would stand up at the front, look at the ground.
Hayden Stinchfield said Kohberger was disliked by undergraduates because of his difficult grading. But that changed in November of 2022.
About a month before winter break, when the murders happened, he started grading everybody just 100s. You pretty much, if you turned something in, you were getting high marks, and he stopped leaving notes. It was just, he seemed preoccupied is what I would have said at the time. And now obviously he seems like he was probably pretty preoccupied.
In early December, a few weeks before his arrest, Kohberger was fired from his teaching assistant position after repeated conduct of unprofessional behavior. That behavior included fighting with a university professor and allegations he followed one female student to her car. More on that next time. For more information on the case and relevant photos, follow us on Instagram at KT_studios.
Okay. Let me get the banner down and turn my camera back on. There I am. Okay. And then I'm just going to take it. I'm just going to put it on subscribers only because we're getting ready to get off of here anyway. Because my chat was frozen. I'm going to see if I can type something in there. Nope. Yep, my chat's frozen. Can you guys all see me and hear me? I hope you can. I mean, I think you can, but that's very weird. Yeah, that's so weird. I don't know. Nobody seen stain skin or injuries on BK's body. Yeah, that was a podcast doodle bug. So I was controlling the, yeah, your chat's messed up too. Mine is too. Mine won't even let me chat. So good thing we're getting ready to get off of here. I felt like I was slowed down there for a minute. I don't know. Must be all the stuff I'm using, guys. I'm making the chat break. Hey, Nookie, welcome in. There's Mary Beth too. Now I'm seeing more people. Now I'm seeing more people. Well, I hope that you guys enjoyed the podcast. They did bring out 2 more episodes on that podcast, and I was like, what? And I forget. I think they start from the beginning and kind of go back through. So maybe we'll probably watch those on our next live. When we go next live, we go over this case. Now, sorry, I have the worst cough ever. I was going to say, I think we're going to do members only tomorrow. That's what we've been doing that on Sundays. And then maybe we'll even do a smaller live. But I'm not sure what we're going to go over yet. So I'll have to, let me see if I can tell you. I might be able to tell you. There's not really any updates as I know of on the Rachel Morin case, but I'm going to look into that. Oh, wow. Natalie Holloway says this is Vandersloot. I guess he's going to plead not guilty over here to her murder. I just read that. So he's an idiot. You did it, sir. You did it. So that'll wrap up our part 4 of our Idaho going back in time series. We did this, like I said in the beginning of the live, we did this back in January. And then again, we did a 2-part series in the beginning of the summer. So, but we always go over different things, whenever we go back. Cause we can't really go anywhere but back right now because we can't go forward because there's a gag order and there's no trial coming up anymore. So that's the only way it's the only thing we can do other than, give in to the speculation and the temptations of, going down rabbit holes on YouTube. But I'm glad you guys were all here with me tonight. Thank you guys so much. If you guys don't mind just taking a couple seconds to hit that thumbs up button, does go a long way. And if you appreciate the case coverage, subscribe to the channel. We talk true crime every day, usually 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sometimes I slip in, in the daytime as well. And like tomorrow we'll do a live, and it'll be good. So I hope you guys all have a great evening. Be careful out there. Don't let anyone steal your credit card information. I've had that happen to me before. It's terrible. So I'm glad that you were able to at least keep your card. But I love you guys. I'll see you guys all tomorrow. Have a good evening and have a good day tomorrow if I don't see you. Bye, guys.